Hey, shout out, folks. It's the old Rucker coming at you live and uncensored from an undisclosed location somewhere in the basement of my house, staring out the window at the forest and the birds and the squirrels and having a wonderful day, and I hope that you are as well. All right, so I got a short topic for you today, and it's anxieties. And, you know, I've heard a lot of chatter about anxieties lately, so it just seemed appropriate that I would just throw a quick, show out there, just a solo show. It's just me today, and give you my 2 cents on anxieties. And so, I'm not a shrink. I'm not a trained psychologist. Okay, I'm just a normal. Well, I don't know about normal, but I'm just another average Joe. Pick up the dog do and hope that it's dry. So anxieties come in like 2 forms, right? There's acute anxiety and there's chronic anxiety. What's the difference? Well, acute anxiety is like walking out of a convenience store and someone's got a gun pointed at your head. That's real. That's a diaper packing moment. That's acute anxiety. And then there's chronic anxiety. And what's chronic anxiety? Well, that's like being in the same convenience store and you're thinking to yourself, what if I go outside and there's a guy pointing a gun at my head? Well, operative words here are what if. So it's reminiscent to me of the Bob Newhart show. Some of you guys are familiar with it. Some of you are like, whatever. Well, first thing I can tell you about Bob Newhart show, he's got a great first name. Bob was a comedian, and he had this shtick, and nobody does Bob better than Bob. But he's a psychiatrist, and he's got this episode where this lady walks in the office, and she says, I'm a referral from so-and-so. And Bob's like, yeah, okay, introductions aside, here's the ground rules. I only charge for the first 5 minutes, and then after that, it's free. And of course, he's got her attention. She's liking this. And he says, well, just go further with this. I charge $1 a minute and I don't make change. And she's like, okay, cool. He's like, well, all right, great. So, why are you here to see me? And she says, well, I have this fear this what if of being buried alive in a box. And Bob's looking at her and he's like, okay. You know what? I think I have a solution to your challenge. And she gets excited, breaks out a pad and a pen. She's ready to write this down. He says, I don't think you need to write this down. The average person can remember 2 words. And she's like, okay. And he says, stop it! Kind of blows the hair off her head. And she's looking at him. He goes, yeah, whenever you think about, being buried alive in a box, just stop it. And okay, is that it? He's like, yeah, I think so. And he goes, oh my, look, that only took 3 minutes. So that'll be $3. And she says, well, I only have a 5. And he says, well, I don't make change. And so she says, I want the rest of my time. And he's like, okay. So she begins a litany of what ifs, her chronic anxieties. And every time she starts to open her mouth, Bob just hits her with, stop it! And at the end of the 5 minutes, she's a little frustrated. And she's like, really? Is that it? That's all you got, is stop it. And he goes, well, actually, I have 9 words for you. You might want to write this down. And again, she's got her pad and her pen. And she's ready to write. And he says, stop it or I'll bury you in a box. Okay, lesson learned here. Chronic anxiety is something we can truly do something about. And I can't speak for everybody out in the world. Again, I don't know your true situations, but I know if it's acute anxiety, that's that's trauma. That's class A. Hey, you need to get help. I get that. But the chronic anxiety, and I think that little sucker creeps with us all the time. And many of us out there suffer from the what ifs. And really, unless it's really happening or it has happened or there's enough evidence to show that it's going to happen, why in the world do we let that stuff rent space in our head for free? I mean, evidence demands a verdict. I'll wait. I'm just curious. I personally don't like getting hung up on what if. What if a monkey flew out of my armpit? I know, terrible visual, but the point is, how realistic is that? So I would encourage you today, if you've got acute anxieties, those diaper packers, get help for that. There is help for, and write our show, check out our resource page. There are ways to get help for acute anxieties. Chronic anxiety, man, the only thing I really got for you, stop it. And I'm going to follow that advice myself. Well, listen, man, I don't want to end on a downer, so I want to tell you that the world is great. Look around you. Look at the stuff that's going on that is good. Make a gratitude list. And if you're hanging around with people that are, downers, dump them. Find some people that have got some enthusiasms about them. People that have a great outlook on life. They're out there. And, sometimes, you get stuck with people you don't have a choice with. Create a happy place in your brain. Some place that even if it's imaginary, go there. There's so many great things you can do in your life, but please don't be held up by chronic anxieties. It's just not worth it. All right, well, it wouldn't be me if I didn't say, if nobody's told you they love you today, I love you. So God bless you. Have an outstanding American day. And until we get to chat again, peace out.